Welcome back to Human X Intelligence. This is the podcast where we'll explore how humans and intelligent systems learn, adapt, and shape each other. If the past 2 episodes were about loops, today we are going one level deeper. Because before any loop can form, before any behavior is reinforced, before any signal is interpreted, there's one force that decides everything that follows, which is attention. Attention is not a soft skill. It is not a productivity trick. Attention is a structural property of intelligence. And the way that humans, products, and models allocate attention becomes the blueprint of how clarity, trust, and behavior emerges. Today, we are exploring the architecture of attention and why misaligned attention is the real root of confusion in intelligent systems. So, let's begin. We usually talk about attention as something we have to manage or even protect, or to try to recover when we feel like we've lost it. Almost as if attention was a resource that runs out. But attention isn't really a resource, it's architecture. Attention decides what becomes visible and what stays invisible, what gets interpreted and what gets ignored, what the system learns and what is completely misunderstands, what the user starts to trust and what they inevitably avoid. And that's why attention is always the first design decision in any intelligent system. Long before UI, long before data, and long before AI, most problems don't start with bad execution. They start because this attention architecture was never designed intentionally in the first place. Humans' attention is emotional, selective, and deeply contextual. We focus on what feels relevant. We avoid what feels overwhelming. We notice things that confirm what we already believe, and we miss things that don't fit the story we already have in our head. Human attention moves in loops through meaning, emotion, context, prediction. And that's why two people can look at the same interface and walk away with completely different understandings. So clarity doesn't start with the ideal user, it starts with a real user, a human with limited cognitive bandwidth, shifting context and emotional patterns that change throughout the day, the movement, the clicks on each part of the page. If we don't design for that, clarity never really has a chance. Every interface directs attention, whether we mean it or not. What sits at the top of the screen signals priority. What highlights or animated signals importance. What's hidden behind the layers quietly tells the user this doesn't really matter. Over time, a product teaches people how to interpret the system, where to look, what to care about, and what to ignore. And when the product attention doesn't match human attention, confusion shows up very quickly. Most users aren't struggling because the future is complex. They are struggling because the product is asking them to pay attention to things they don't understand, they don't care about, or they are not ready to interpret yet. That's where friction begins, and that's where cognitive overload starts creeping in. Models have attention too. It's not emotional, it's mechanical, but it's still attention. Models learn in weight inputs, patterns, signals based on what improves prediction. A model might start prioritizing a word or a behavior pattern or a correlation that looks useful, even if no human intended. Sometimes it learns shortcuts. Sometimes it optimizes for signals that were never meant to matter that much. And when the system starts paying attention to the wrong things, drift begins, not loudly, not visible. Alignment usually breaks inside model attention long before it shows up in product behavior. That's why understanding what the model is attending to is essential for maintaining clarity and trust over time. If I had to reduce most intelligent product failures in one sentence, it would be this. Human attention, product attention, and model attention are not aligned. That's it. Pretty simple. When these 3 layers drift apart, users feel confused, teams feel misaligned, and the system starts behaving in ways that feel unpredictable or just strange. Most clarity failures are really attention failures. You've probably seen this before. Users keep focusing on the wrong part of the screen. Teams argue about metrics because no one agrees on what system is optimizing for. Models start recommending things that feel irrelevant. Features change behavior after an update because the model learned a new pattern. And teams start to feel overwhelmed because attention is scattered across too many initiatives, signals, and priorities. These don't look like attention problems at first. They get framed as UX issues, model issues, strategy issues. But underneath, they are attention problems. So here's the blueprint. If you want intelligent systems to stay coherent, you need alignment across 3 layers of attention. Layer number 1 is pretty simple, it's human attention. Be clear about what users need to notice, understand, decide, or interpret in each moment. Then remove anything that competes with it. Second alignment is very simple as well, which is product attention. Make the interface match the mental model. Turn up the volume on what matters, turn it down everywhere else. And the third one, the last one, is the model attention. Guide what the system learns to wait. Provide clearer signals, remove shortcuts, add guardrails where necessary. When these 3 attentions move together, clarity emerges naturally. When they drift apart, confusion is guaranteed. As the systems gain more intelligence and more agency, the interface is no longer the only thing shaping meaning. The model is shaping behavior too, which means the role they design is changing. Designers aren't just designing screens anymore, they're designing attention. Product managers are designing incentives, data scientists are designing signal quality, and teams are designing alignment. Clarity doesn't happen at the end, it actually happens at the beginning, and it begins with attention. This was episode 5 of Human X Intelligence. The architecture of attention is one of the most important ideas shared in this entire season, because without aligned attention, no loop works, no explanation lands, and no intelligence remains coherent. This also brings us to the end of this year's season. We are taking a short break and we'll be back on January 8th with the next episode of Human X Intelligence. When we return, we move from attention to agency. What happens when systems start acting and not just predicting? Thank you for being here this year, and if this episode gave you something to think about, share it with someone building in the age of AI. See you on January 8th.